Alrighty, what is going on, guys? January 17th, another beautiful day here in Dubai. Another day, another recording. So, today I'm going to talk about a topic that is rather sensitive lately, I believe. You may have heard about it, you most likely have the imminent TikTok ban. Allegedly, the government in the US will be banning TikTok on January 19th in 2 days. Do I think that's going to actually happen? I mean, maybe. I couldn't be the. I don't know anything about it really. I know next to nothing. That's just what I've heard, and like what's going to happen? Like how are they going to do it? Because everybody will still have the app. I'm not sure what is going to happen if you've got the app downloaded and you use it. Is it just going to stop working? I'm not personally sure, but I wanted to just give kind of like my 2 cents on the topic, and maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, maybe this will trigger you. If it does, then oh well. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that could be said about this, and I'm kind of torn on whether or not I agree with this decision. I think if I do agree with it, it's not necessarily for the reasons why they're actually doing it, right? So first off, if you don't know, this is just what I've heard. They're banning TikTok because they think that it's like some Chinese spy company, right? It's like the Chinese is spying on us and stealing our data through TikTok, right? They're getting access to your phone. It's like I saw on Joe Rogan, again, not sure if this is true. Don't quote me on any of this, but I've heard that when you agree to the policy statement for having TikTok on your phone, you actually are agreeing to allow TikTok to look at your entire phone, including your keystrokes. So, if you're texting sensitive information at any point using your phone, the app is able to like read anytime you're typing, which is incredibly scary. And which is, it's personally, I have nothing to hide, but, again, do I want like China knowing my social security number? Probably not. So, I mean, if that's really the case, then I guess I would definitely agree with if that is happening. I would agree with that shouldn't be a thing, right? I would agree that we should probably not have that. The reason I don't agree with it, let's just start here. Yeah, the reason I don't agree is because I think free speech and man, this could be such a long conversation. Do I think America is the best country on earth? I'm not really sure, but I think that we take a lot of things for granted that are just not true throughout all the other parts of the world. And if you travel, I'm not saying I'm super well traveled. I'm really not. I'm only 27. And I certainly haven't been to places where there's like mega strict laws. Like I've really just been to like Saudi Arabia where you're not allowed to drink alcohol, right? And I'm sure there's other things there that you're not allowed to do, but even Saudi has become very like Americanized. Like women have all the same rights there, I believe, at this point. So we have a lot of in America. Like again, I'm not sure if it's the best place ever, but we take for granted a lot of the freedom that we have, and I think that freedom of speech goes way deeper than we realize. Right? Imagine if you were able to be like put in jail for just saying something. Like, can you imagine like just how fearful your life would become because you're just afraid to like say the wrong thing? And I think that because of the whole like woke culture, which maybe is starting to like subside a little bit, in my opinion, that's a good thing. Because of the whole like woke PC culture that we've been seeing, since a little bit before COVID, and then COVID, I think, really brought it out. People are careful to speak their mind, and I've got a separate video, I'm sure I'll make more, where I think you should speak your mind 100% all the time, right? Now, there are exceptions. Don't be a hateful person. Don't be negative. And obviously don't incite violence and provoke people or like cause unnecessary alarm. If you walk into a building and start screaming fire, fire, I think that's bad. Like, or you start, you're in an airport, you start talking about bombs or whatever. Probably not good, right? Probably not good. But those things I think should be, there should be consequences for those things. But assuming you're just giving your opinion politely, or speaking about things and you're doing so in a non-malicious way and you're just giving your opinion, I think that should be welcomed, and I think that that's how society advances. So if TikTok is a medium to allow for this, like any other social media is, I think that is ultimately a good thing. Now, let's talk about why I agree with banning TikTok, and I don't think it's for the reason that they're saying they're banning TikTok, right? I think, and this is where this conversation could get way longer. If you know me, you know how I feel about these things, and I've never been a proponent of social media. And obviously now I've got an Instagram with over 100,000 subscribers. So it's like, oh, like, are you, I never thought I would be there, right? I never thought I would be like an avid Instagram user. And I don't really even see myself that way. Like, people are like, oh, you're an influencer now. I'm like, that's like funny to me, right? Like, that's like crazy to me. Like, I'm such a not social media person. Like, I think that it's bad. Like, I think that it's like really bad. And like, if you look up, I saw a podcast earlier yesterday. I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about how, especially for the youth, right, there are zero studies, right, actual scientific studies that suggest that being on Instagram when you're like a middle schooler or a high schooler is good for you, right? That all of the studies would say it's bad, and it has adverse effects to your mental health. And I think that's almost something that you don't even need to study. I think it's just super, super obvious for a lot of reasons. And one big one, I think, is just, maybe the main one, right? So before I say that, I think that, it could be bad because it's a place that allows for people to kind of talk about each other. And again, you should be allowed to have free speech, but it's a place for people to like, you have this FOMO, right? You have this FOMO because you're seeing an image of people on social media that isn't, it's a very manicured and created image, right? When you're looking at somebody's like Instagram account, a personal Instagram account, that is content that they've chose to put there. You're only seeing the highlight reel. I'm sure you've heard this before, but you're only looking at the positives, and it paints this like distorted picture of reality. And especially, I could see it in the instance of being like a young girl, for example, and they're, middle school age, and they're on TikTok, or they're on, Instagram, looking at these unrealistic standards, and then they're having these mental health issues because they feel that they don't meet those standards, when in reality those standards are not actually there, right? I'm sure you've heard somewhat of this sort of narrative before. This is not good, right? This is one reason it's not good. But I think the biggest reason that it's not good is just because of the level of accessibility that we have to it, right? Now, I don't think looking at somebody else and being like, oh, I wish I had what they have, is something new, right? I think that's just like human nature, is to like compare ourselves to one another. And I actually don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I think we should look at someone else and be like, I like what he has. I like the way he carries himself. I like his attitude. I like the way he looks. I like the way he dresses. I want to be more like that guy. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But I think it's bad when you're doing it like all day, right? I think it's bad when you have something in the palm of your hands or in your pocket at all times, right? And you're essentially addicted, right? You're essentially addicted to this. And I think TikTok is, oh man, there's so much I could be say. There's so much that could be said about this. I think TikTok is the worst of it, right? I think TikTok has, because of the entire thing where you just swipe, right? You are not consenting to what you're watching anymore. You're not deciding, okay, this is what happened with TikTok, right? This is what happened when TikTok came out. Before TikTok, you had things like YouTube where you had to at least click on a video. You had to at least choose this video to watch, right? You have things like Instagram where, for the most part, you've got to choose who you subscribe to. You have to choose who you follow on Instagram. So you're at least curating what you see to some degree, right? But with TikTok, now you've got the whole thing where you swipe. And I think that it's random nonsense. And I think that it's like, yeah, and there's an algorithm that, allegedly tailors it to you, but it's just, you're not consenting. Like, it's just mindless. Like it's literally mindless consumption. And I think that our brains, we don't, I think what we don't understand is like our brains work on a chemical basis, right? Our brains are not like taking into account what stimuli in reality are causing certain things to go on in our brains. Our brains are just chemicals. So like when you're on something like TikTok all day and you're just swiping, right? Your brain thinks it's like a drug. It literally is like a drug. And I'm not saying Instagram is not the same thing. I'm not saying YouTube isn't the same thing. TV could even be that, right? I'm not saying that this is even anything new, right? My grandma, I remember, used to call the TV the idiot box, right? I think TikTok is many times worse, and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts are many times worse. Why? Because you're not consenting. Because you are just opening it up, and you're like the level of like work that you have to put into to doing it, right? With TV, let's just talk about like reading a book, right? If you're gonna read a book, you have to like do it. Like you have to be engaged the whole time. That's why after you read, you feel sort of like refreshed. Even if you're reading something entertaining, I feel like you almost feel for me, I feel like I've meditated almost. Like to me, I feel calm and at ease because I had to be present the entire time while I was reading each word. Whereas if you watch TV, it's somewhat mindless. But at least if you're watching a TV show or a movie, you have to like pay attention to a storyline. Same thing with YouTube. It's like you're usually listening to somebody talking and it's like a longer form point they're trying to make. Like so far I've been talking for 12 minutes. It's like if you tuned out, it's just not, you have to be tuned in at least to a degree, right? Not anymore, not with TikTok. And I think that this is such a problem because it just enables you to be so like just your brain, it's like a thing that just supplies you cheap dopamine and just turns you could just turn your brain off and just essentially just hook in, plug it into your freaking brain. It's like there's a wire just feeding dopamine into your brain. And then I mean, a lot of the stuff that I get on Instagram Reels, like I'm not on TikTok, but like the stuff I just look at on Instagram Reels, it's just nonsense. It's just brain rot nonsense. Like the new word is brain rot, right? It literally is like some of the Reels I'll get served are just like, it's not even like a joke. Like it's literally not even a joke. It's just somebody like screaming or something. It's like, this is where we're at. And, if you're watching this, you might be going, but Ben, this is not all of TikTok. This is not all of Instagram Reels. Like, there's plenty of, like, good content on TikTok. There's plenty of, like, like, people say, oh, but I learned so much from TikTok. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not, like, choosing what you learn. You're not seeking that information out. You're learning random facts about random things. And like, do I have Instagram Reels saved where I came across one and I'm like, oh, you know what? This is a good thing I'd like to know. Or like, oh, like this is an inspiring video that I'd like to save and maybe like use for inspo when I'm working on a project later. Yeah, like of course, like I think there are obviously benefits to it, but like, it's just the kind of thing to me where like the pros don't really outweigh the cons. And I think that it's tough. It's a tough situation now because we've already had it, right? We've already had it. It's one thing to have never had it. And we say, hey, look, this is something that's ultimately going to be a negative thing for people, right? And maybe this is just bigger than TikTok. This is like, to me, this is like all of social media. If we had been able to see the implications of social media and say, hey, maybe we just shouldn't do this. Maybe we should just talk in real life. Maybe we should just talk on the phone, leave it at that. Maybe we should just have movies and TV shows and not have our phones all the time. I think social media, just to add, I don't even think it would be bad if you just didn't have a phone. I think if social media was limited to a computer and you just weren't able to be on it all the time, all of these things I'm talking about would kind of just go away. Like, you wouldn't be able to be as addicted. If you had to be not on your phone in public because you just didn't have a phone, if phones weren't a thing, like smartphones, I think the world would just be like a way, way, way better place. Again, maybe a like conflicting, what's the word? like hypocritical of me. Maybe it's hypocritical of me to say, because my entire business is Instagram. All I do is make content for Instagram. I make all the videos for clients that I make. Usually it's for Instagram, and it's like, so maybe it's a hypocritical opinion, but I mean, hey, like here we are. So I'm gonna play the game, right? I'm not gonna be able to beat the game. So I do think that that's valid, right? But my point here is, what the point I was making is, we've already had TikTok, right? So it's similar to where if you've got a baby and you hand him a lollipop and you let him have it for a little bit and then you take it away, he's gonna be really upset. Whereas if you just never gave him the lollipop in the first place, that would be ideal, right? Because now that he's had it, right, now that we've had TikTok and you take it away, now people are going to be really upset. And even though it was something that was ultimately bad for them, they're just going to miss the positives that I find it, this is what I find hard to believe, and I think this is what you should ask yourself if you're going to really be that upset about TikTok going away. Is your life actually getting that much worse? You know, if we took cars away, how much worse would your life be? I'd say way worse, right? If we didn't have a car, right? If you didn't have cars at all, your life would get way worse. If you didn't have, if you didn't have a phone, if you didn't have tools on your phone, like if you didn't have GPS, right? Imagine that. Imagine you had to look at a map. I'm 27. I never knew. I have like vague memories of my dad, of us on a road trip and my dad with a freaking map, right? Imagine that. Imagine you didn't have like a tool that actually allowed you to like figure out exactly where you are at all times and like type in anywhere and you just know how to get there magically, right? Now imagine that you didn't have TikTok because what does it actually do for you? Like what purpose does it serve besides cheap dopamine, besides just cheap entertainment? Like, oh, like you're standing in line and now you can't just scroll on TikTok for that 5-minute period of you being in a line and you're bored. Be bored. Like, use your imagination. And I think that's, again, this is like a way longer conversation. I'm sure I'll make more videos about this, but I think that's like one of the biggest things our phones have done is it's sort of eliminated the need for us to have imagination, because what you do when you're distracted all the time is, and again, the more turned off your brain is, right? It's one thing, again, to be reading a book. It's another thing to be watching a TV show or movie. It's another thing to be watching a YouTube video. And then it's a whole nother thing to be on TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, right? Any of those scrolly ones. I think it's a whole separate thing. It's when your brain is so turned off because it's just a drip feed to you and you could just be on there all day. Your imagination, it's like one of those things where it's like if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And so you don't need to have an imagination anymore. You don't need to your brain doesn't need to essentially entertain itself anymore. You just can open up your phone and get your cheap dopamine as easily as possible. So I think the biggest thing, if you feel like uninspired or you feel not as tapped into life, like when's the last time you've went a day without your phone? Like when's the last time you've done that? I've got some guys I work with and I teach them how to do video stuff, right? And one of my biggest pieces of advice to them whenever I'm trying to have them come up with an idea for a video, it's not look up inspiration for a video. It's not to try and figure out what you want to make based on what someone else has made and consume, right? It's no, put your phone away, even for an hour. Watch what happens if you don't have your phone on you for a day or let alone, an hour, right? Your brain has to turn on again and get its dopamine from somewhere else. And what you'll realize is it's a very beautiful thing. And I think that this is the thing that, again, I think phones more so than social media alone. I think the combination of social media being on your phone at all times has done to society. It's eliminated this. And I think that is the culprit for all of the insane mental issues that we see nowadays. I think that's the main culprit. I think that's the main one. So again, this is already a long video. Again, I don't know how I feel about it because, you know, again, the lollipop's already been given, right? We've already had TikTok. There's Instagram Reels, there's YouTube Shorts, there's other things that are the same thing. In a sense, the damage has already been done. So at this point, what does taking it away really even do? Because there's just other ways to do the exact same thing. So, and then also, you know, it's like kind of like to me, it's like a free speech thing. Again, we sort of take rights for granted, and you know, here we are losing something that, you know, it's almost like unfair. It's like, why shouldn't the free market and capitalism be able to decide, you know, what the consumers want to have, right? I think that's like the beautiful thing about America and about first world countries and like capitalism is that, you know, a company, if you have an idea, you can start that idea and then the public can decide based on whether or not they want to buy it, if that idea was a good idea. And that's the way that innovation happens. That's the way that, you know, to me, that's the way that like society moves forward, is like the freedom to be able to do essentially whatever you want, assuming it's not like harmful, right? But then I also do believe that there are instances where the government or whoever, you know, people in power should step in, and there should be regulations, and there should be people who say, wait, hey, this is something where we're putting our foot down. You know, this is technically a restriction, but this is a really good restriction. Like, there's a reason why this is not being allowed. Again, I think their reason for it is different than the reason I'm talking about, but I think, like, I do agree with it 60-40, again, for a different reason. I think that we'll be better off without it. I don't think your life, if you're sitting here and you're upset that TikTok's going away, I think you need to think about how your life's actually going to be affected. Because to me, it's just going to free up some more time in your day, and you know, make you use your brain a little bit more, and you know, might hurt a little bit at first, but you're going to feel a lot better. So yeah, it's already a long video. I'll stop it there. As always, appreciate you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what other topics you want to talk about. Let me know if you agree with this take. I'd love to know what other people think about this. So yeah, that's my take on the TikTok ban. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Peace, guys.